Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for joining us again. We all want to live in a just society. We all want social justice for things to be set right. Imam Ali alayhi salam was once asked, what is better of these two, generosity or justice? And Imam Ali alayhi salam replied, justice. This is because without justice, it is neither possible to attain personal perfection or to organize a society. It is through the existence of justice that the material and intellectual rights of men are safeguarded. All obligations and rights become meaningful. It is for this reason that in Islam, both rights and limitations are recognized. So, ladies, do you think that in today's society there is injustice? And if so, how?
I definitely think there's a lack of justice in today's society. I mean, it's social injustice. It does cover most of the injustice that is happening today. We're talking classism, we're talking racism, we're talking about different types of discrimination going on. Why it's there, I can't even answer that. People just don't seem to care anymore.
I think being Muslims, we face a great injustice. People just automatically treat us differently. If we're on the train, no one would want to sit next to you. It's really nice because you get the whole carriage to yourself, but you automatically feel secluded, especially when going to jobs, that we mentioned that previously, going to work and just everyday society, people will look at you funny because you won't get treated the same automatically because you're Muslim.
I think that even applies as far as the name. When you apply with your CV anywhere, if your name sounds Arab or Muslim sounding or Asian sounding of some sort, they will reject. I even had a friend, we all doctors, so even within our speciality, when we would do the specialty application, he was actually going to change his name, slightly modify it to a more English or white sounding name, just so it wouldn't affect his specialty application and things like that. This is how desperate us young Muslims are getting to just get anywhere far in our careers, in our lives here within the Western world or even in the UK, which is really, really sad and very unfortunate. But that is that's all part of injustice, isn't it? It might not be labelled as such, the country might have even, it might not be set anywhere specifically as guidelines saying, people with Muslim sounding names, we will not get them into a specific high position within their career field. It's not said anywhere, it's not labelled anywhere, but we all know it happens day in, day out. And that is the very unfortunate thing. That's why we can't address it, we can't fight it, because there is no basis. It's not like it's set up as a guideline or in a protocol or within a contract that we can just argue and take them to the court, for example. We can't do that. So that's the very sad and unfortunate truth of today's society.
And just to add on to that, I had to have a really difficult conversation with my brother when he was 16 because he was trying to apply for jobs, and he sat down and he said, I think I want to go change my name. And I said, why? And he said, and I've never had to think about this, never had a conversation like this before. And he said, I think I might just change my name to Ed. And his name is Mohammed. So I said, but why? And he was just like, because they're more likely to accept me, because when they see Mohammed, they're going to assume that I've just come to this country and they won't hire me. So there is that stereotype, there's that judgment there. And I didn't find it fair because he's only 16, and to have that conversation with him, to try and get him to understand that he does not need to change his name, it was difficult. It was really difficult.
What a lot of people are doing is using an English middle name or Western middle name. So the first name is surname, for example, Arab or Muslim surname, but the middle name is quite English and they go by that name. And they'll send off their CV as that as well, because it's at the end of the day an official name that they can use.
And with that said, actually, we see the classism that's going on, especially when applying for jobs. And fine, you get the interview, you're there. But it depends on how you're dressed. If you look like you've come from a low income background, they are less likely to say yes. But if it looks like you've come from a wealthy background, they're more interested, they're more engaged with you. You're more likely to get that call and be like, okay, hi, you've got the job. And the bigger problem as well with that is it isn't just specific to classism, isn't just specific to racism. I would say that the whole name thing is a racism thing, but it's sexism as well. You've got the women are still seen as the weaker gender. We're talking from, it's always been like that. We're talking from time till now. We are in 2019, yet still we have to face that. No, a woman can't do this role, so she has to do this. We still get paid less. There's still so many different problems with it. And how are we exactly going to deal with it? How do we challenge this? I mean, the only way we can challenge the injustice that we see is by raising awareness, and to get people to actually raise their voices, because that's the only way you will be heard. You can go through all these different procedures of, you know, when you've got the companies and the government, but I'm sorry, when it comes down to it, they won't listen unless you're right there.
Yeah.
Trying to raise your voice at them.
I don't know, how many protests can we do though?
We've done many.
We've done many, and it still doesn't get heard. I feel like us standing there and preaching, they don't care. They don't care about what's happening.
There's a system that's going on, and we're just there.
There needs to be a way to change the systems. Like, people from our communities need to step up and get involved. We're not getting involved.
Agreed, but why are people not getting involved?
That fear of being shut down in the first instance.
Agreed.
That's the thing. Like, we get put down so easy in the first steps, but no one really gets back up again, and rarely people do. And even when they do and they get to high stages, they conform and they become part of the other people, and they get their ideas and their views and their opinions because they want to fit in. They can't be the minority and then not fit in.
But I mean, you won't actually see the change unless you make the change within yourself first.
That's the thing.
I mean, what I've seen from today is people have stopped caring. People have become so selfish because they're so self-absorbed with their own problems.
Yeah.
I mean, each person has their own problems that they go through, but many of them can be fixed and sorted if everybody just gets together. And that's what we're not seeing. That's what we're not finding.
I think as a community, we have to get together and make a difference. Otherwise, we'll just get walked all over.
Yeah.
I think it also depends, like, it's from an individual to another individual. How many times have we seen bullying on the streets, or someone just being oppressed for whatever reason, or if it's just an argument and we've just turned a blind eye to it and continued walking on? Because I might say, I'm only a little hijabi girl, what am I going to do if there's two taller people fighting, for instance, or if there's a taller person with a kid and we don't know what the circumstances are? Do we want to get involved? Do we want to get accidentally beaten up during that argument? I think a lot of us tend to do that because it's just for the peace of mind and it's less hassle, less struggle. But like, if we were living in a just society where the whole community would not turn a blind eye, or if there is an racism attack in a bus or on some public transport of some sort, if we all just don't keep quiet, whatever ethnicity, whatever religion we are. I think you pointed that out really nicely last time when you mentioned that what happened to you and how everyone stood by your side. That's a really nice example, but unfortunately it's so rare nowadays.
It's hard though. Like, I would like to think that all of us would stand up when we see someone getting oppressed or getting treated unfairly. Yeah. But it is hard. How do you deal with the situation, and how does it implicate you when it does happen?
Exactly.
I mean, talking to a person who, my job is to interfere in situations like this. When I am seeing someone being bullied, when I am seeing someone get into a fight, that I don't have that hesitation anymore to jump in. But I'll tell you this, but when I'm not at my work, I'm walking home, and if someone was to approach me, and it would become into a bad situation, I won't be able to handle it. I won't be able to put a stop to it. I feel like myself, I feel weak. And also, if I did see someone else on the street, I would think twice, just because I don't have control over the situation. Whereas at work, I have control. But when on the street, I don't have that control. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who's there. I don't know how many people, you know, because if I've got two young people getting into a fight, I have to look, okay, how many are there? How big are they? Can I handle them on my own?
Exactly.
Do they have weapons? And I have to think about all these kind of things. But then when you're watching it on the outside from the street, I don't know how to control that situation. So it is more difficult to kind of step in, and I get it. It's really hard. But there are so many other situations where I feel like people should be standing up and trying to help others. When you do see someone who's fallen onto the ground, loads of people just walk past. I've seen it happen. And it's because they're relying on the idea that someone else is going to do it. Someone else is going to do it.
That's a selfish nature.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and that's an injustice on its own. That's what I feel.
I think a major injustice that I've experienced my whole life is probably with my grandfather. He's actually atheist, he's not Muslim. My mum converted, so he doesn't tend to actually like Muslims. He has a big issue that my mum converted and everything. Consistently, he brings up comments about me being Muslim or us being Muslim. I actually haven't seen him in like 3 years now, I think. Like whenever he comes to England, he doesn't really want to see us. And it's funny because like all his other grandkids, he treats them completely differently to how we're treated, just because we're a different religion.
Yeah.
Even God knows what my cousins would do. He would look at us like we're the bad people.
Yeah.
And it's just because he doesn't like it. He doesn't agree. And he would constantly argue, like when my grandma was ill and I went to Cyprus to go see her, he didn't like that we wore hijab and people he knew could see us. And that he'd tell people, oh, they're wearing hijab. They're wearing it to hide from the sun. They don't like the sun. Like he was that embarrassed of us and who we were as people. And he thinks that we are bad people because we chose to be Muslim.
Did you try to have a conversation with him about it?
He does not listen.
He's set in his ways.
And he's at that age now that he believes what he believes, and that's fine.
I think a lot of converts are facing that issue. It's and it's really sad because you have to choose: is it for the love of God and the right path that you choose, or is it your family? And I think that's the thing. When in the last episode we spoke about sacrifice of family, would you sacrifice if it came for a religion or for the love of God? And I respect, honestly, all converts that have been through that, because it's not easy. Like those that actually stand up for their faith, for Islam, and practice it over and over again and stand against everybody, as even the closest to them, that is just amazing, and I respect that.
I mean, I face a different type of injustice, and that's among the workplace. I mean, my battle's always been with men at the workplace because I'm the only female in terms of management. It's so tough to actually try to get my word out, to actually try to get anything done the way I think it needs to be done, only because I'm perceived as the weaker gender. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough because there's so many different small things that they would see fit to agree with only because a man has said it. But if I were to say something, it was straight, nope, disregard, disagree, sorry, not happening. And it's a continuous battle. I have to, it's become a point where I'm raising my voice, so listen to me. And it's getting so difficult. I mean, and it links back to Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam when she stood up against Yazid. I wouldn't compare my workplace to Yazid, but it's the concept of she stood there, she spoke out. She wasn't afraid. She didn't have the anxiety. She wasn't scared. She said what she needed to say and she made them hear it. And I just thinking about it, and it reminds me of how I need to be and how I need to aspire to be, that I need to always make sure that I get my voice heard. Because she shook that entire courtroom with the words that she was saying. And I don't need to grab anyone by the arms and shake them. No, listen to me. Just speak the words.
With your words, you can change people's opinions.
Well, Sayyida Zainab was only 5 years old when she witnessed Mother Fatima Zahra alayhi salam giving one of her most eloquent sermons that we have in the history of Islam. And she was only 5, and she was the #1 narrator of that sermon later on in life. And she was only 5 or 6 when she picked that up. So it goes a lot. You see it. When you see it, of course, I'm talking about the next generation or our children one day. If they see us taking a stand against injustice, or kind of, because where do we take it from? We take it from our parents, from our community, from our families, and our Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that we learn so much from, and we're going to pass it on to the next generation. But unfortunately, if we don't and we kind of lose it, then this is the bit where it kind of gets lost in translation for the next generation. But that's the bit that we need to learn from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that they've passed on those legacies of morals and justice and mercy from one generation to another, and they've stuck to it. The foundations are all the same. The circumstances are different, but it's the same foundations over and over again.
Lady Zainab alayhi salam stood up and fought against Yazid and his army, and fought against all the oppression that she went through. She stood up and spoke for what she believed in. I hope that if I had to do that, if I came to it, I'd be able to speak up. There is a few things, like probably in the workplace, I speak up and I stand up for what I believe in very strongly. And I think I take that inspiration from her, that I can stand up for what I believe in and get heard no matter where I am or what's going on. That we should stand up towards oppression, towards injustice. I think I struggle more with trying to be heard because I'm worried, or I feel like, oh, they're going to look at me funny, or what they're going to say, or how dare she speak, type of thing.
Yeah, it just shows the difference of how Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam was. And she was so strong. She did not feel worried in any shape or form to speak up. She wanted to fight against that corruption. She wanted to let them know, listen, you are a tyrant, and what you've done is a tragedy and it's horrible. And given that everything that she's gone through, like you said, she saw her brother being killed, her entire family were massacred, and yet she still had to take along the children. She still had to take the women of the family and just continue going and still stand up and fight. I mean, that in itself, it's great. And thinking about if I was to go through something like that today, I know I could only go so far. I don't think that I'd be able to get through the whole thing. I don't think I could.
No, I don't think.
I think her strength came from Allah.
Just hearing what you said, like after people have passed in my family, you wouldn't see me for a week. Like, I don't think I could. Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, I think that's why it's really important for us to look up to Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam, to learn from her strength, even though we will never master them, because we can never come so close to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But if we learn and take those morals and we stay just to all those principles, and we're fully 100% convinced from within that these are the right things to do, then even the day we stand against even the whole world because it's being so unjust, then we can sleep at night peacefully because we know we've done the right thing. And we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching at all time, and He knows that we've done the right thing. So it doesn't matter if you've stood against the whole world or your whole family or the society, because as long as you've done the right thing. And that's what we need to learn, and that's what the Ahlul Bayt were doing over and over again, that they were doing the right thing because Allah is always watching. So I think it's very important that we all learn from it, the older generations, our generation, and even the younger generations, and just pass it on.